Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and again, we talk about bad judges here. And quite often, it's judges doing really, really bad things, like drunk driving and things of that nature that make them look bad, like they shouldn't be judges. And I got a story here that's been sent to me by so many people. So many people sent me this story. And it's actually gotten worldwide attention. And the reason we know that is I'm going to use the version from the BBC. The BBC headline: U.S. judge resigns after being disciplined for wearing Elvis wig in court. Now, it wasn't just the Elvis wig. It was a lot of other Elvis-related stuff. But, you know, if you're into somebody that much, that's fine. You can have your heroes. You can have your hobbies. You can have your passions. Don't let them interfere with you doing your job, especially if you're a judge. A school bus driver, maybe. Maybe if a school bus driver was into Elvis, that's fine. A judge on the bench. So Nadine Youssef wrote this: a Missouri court has seen the resignation of a judge who was disciplined for wearing an Elvis Presley wig in court and occasionally playing Elvis songs during proceedings. Totally inappropriate. The longest serving circuit judge in St. Charles County is a self-described Elvis lover, according to his own biography page. But his love for the king contributed to a disciplinary commission demanding his suspension, citing his frequent irrelevant Elvis references in court. In a letter explaining his actions, the judge said his aim was to add levity at times when I thought it would help relax litigants. So he's trying to relax the litigants, which, by the way, is actually the job of the attorneys. You prepare your client for court. Don't have an attorney? Well, that's another story altogether. But the point is that it's not the judge's job to do like a stand-up routine and relax the litigants. He says, I now recognize that this could affect the integrity and solemnity of the proceedings. And that was a letter he wrote to the Missouri Supreme Court. Again, the Supreme Court of a state oversees the courts therein. The judge would routinely wear an Elvis Presley wig on or about October 31st, which of course is Halloween, in court while conducting court business. And you know, here's the thing. That's from a report by Missouri's Commission on Retirement, Removal, and Discipline of Judges. And they're the ones who investigate allegations of judicial misconduct. But you'll often go someplace, walk into a school, elementary school, or walk into a bank. And I've seen employees dress up for Halloween. But it's usually very, very minor. Like they might be wearing some goofy glasses or something, or I don't know, a hat. Or if they can wear a shirt, wearing a shirt. But the fact that the judge is wearing an Elvis costume on the bench. Hey, it's Halloween. That's not the excuse. Should the court clerks out at the counter be wearing costumes? I don't actually think so. I think the entire court should be business. They should be running like a business in the sense that it's very serious. Let's take this stuff seriously. So the report included images of the judge sitting on the bench wearing an Elvis wig, the big old pompadour, and sunglasses. And again, should the judge be wearing sunglasses in any context on the bench? No. The prescription? But they weren't. On occasion, he would give litigants or witnesses the option of being sworn in while playing Elvis music from his phone. Before we swear you in, would you like some Elvis music? Talk about the dumbest question a judge has ever asked in open court. He would also refer to the singer occasionally during court proceedings, including mentioning his date of birth or death and lyrics from his music, according to the inquiry report. At the risk of going off on an Elvis tangent, I will tell you that Elvis Presley died the same week that Bobby Isaac died, the man who drove the race car this model is based upon. And so that's one thing that's always stuck in my head, but that's another story altogether. And then again, I'm not a judge. So in an interview with a local media outlet last year, he said he had visited Graceland 13 times. And that, of course, is where the singer lived, and he is now buried there. And I've been there once, not 13 times, but he added that Elvis was always on his mind. So you get it, always on my mind, since he was a child. The disciplinary report also cites unrelated conduct like sharing his political affiliation or preferred candidates in elections from the bench, as well as promoting his own election campaign by asking witnesses, lawyers, and litigants if they'd seen the vote for me signs around town. Totally inappropriate. Because the judge asks you, did you see it? You don't say, no, I haven't, Your Honor. You got to say, oh, of course, yes, yes. He knows that. The commission found that the judge had failed to maintain order and decorum in the courtroom, and they recommended he be suspended without pay for 6 months and then serve another 18 months before retiring. But in a letter that the judge wrote to them, he did not dispute the allegations, saying they were substantially accurate. He acknowledged he had made a mistake, agreed to the terms set up by the commission, and he's going to retire from the bench after 20 years. So the judge will retire despite the fact that he'd been doing all this goofy stuff, but they're going to let him do that, and it probably avoids a whole bunch of litigation and so on. But you might wonder, some people always say, Steve, I understand as just a gut reaction that something is wrong here. But what rule, what law, what statute, what code, what's the actual rule that got him in trouble? So I don't know the rules in his state, Missouri, but I do know the rules in Michigan. And the rules that judges abide by is the Code of Judicial Conduct. The Code of Judicial Conduct. And there's not that many rules, but they're quite broad. And rule number 3, and they're actually called canons, C-A-N-O-N, canons. Canon number 3 is a judge should perform the duties of office impartially and diligently. In the performance of these duties, the following standards apply. And there's a whole bunch of standards that are broken down in subparts. But one of them, and again, this is sub 3 of Canon 3, a judge should be patient, dignified, and courteous to litigants, jurors, witnesses, lawyers, and others with whom the judge deals in an official capacity, and should require similar conduct of lawyers, of staff, court officials, and others subject to the judge's direction and control. The key word there, and I tried to underline it as I spoke it, dignified. Dignified. In case you're curious, I got the definition of dignified here for you. Having or showing a composed or serious manner that is worthy of respect. So was he dignified when he's wearing the goofy Elvis wig and the goofy big glasses, and he's talking about Elvis Presley and asking litigants if they'd like to be sworn in to an Elvis song? Okay? It is so weird and otherworldly, I have a hard time imagining it. But if you got to pick a song, I like Always on My Mind, but I also like Kentucky Rain. I'm not so big on the classics, but Jailhouse Rock or something. But I worked at oldies radio stations back in the day, and I played a ton of his music. But you'd have to understand that that's appropriate. I was working at a radio station where I got paid to play music, okay? The judge is on the bench to be a judge. And, I've seen judges who have hobbies, but you often don't know it unless you're back in chambers and they've got stuff behind them or on their shelves or something to indicate they've got hobbies. But understand that if I was a judge, and I'm not a judge, I don't want to be a judge. If I was a judge, you might see some of this type of stuff behind me. And if somebody said, Steve, Your Honor, what's the story behind that right there? Or the story behind that right there? Or that right there? That is a great conversation starter. And it is something that would possibly help somebody be at ease with the judge. There's no problem with that happening outside of the courtroom. Inside the courtroom, it's a big problem. It is absolutely a big problem. And the judge's job is to perform the duties of office impartially and diligently, and be patient, dignified, and courteous to litigants. And another way of looking at the job of a judge, is the judge runs the courtroom. And I know it's painfully obvious, but I'm saying this for a reason. If you simply look at a courtroom that's in action, there's a trial going on. There's a judge, there's a witness, there's two parties, there's the party's attorneys, there's a bailiff, there's a court reporter, or sometimes there's mechanical recording devices, but let's assume a court reporter. There's a jury, and there's a bunch of people back here watching. All of this stuff is happening. And if you walk in, for instance, during a cross-examination, you might think, oh, that attorney's running things right now. No, the judge is still running things. The judge is the director. The judge is the conductor. The judge is running that courtroom, okay? And so to run that courtroom properly means they've got to follow certain rules and set certain standards. And so the judge should be watching everything. And I hate to use this phrase, but first and foremost, the judge should lead by example. The judge should be taking this very seriously. That way, the attorneys will take it seriously, their clients will take it seriously. The jury will take it seriously. Imagine if you're a juror, you're in a courtroom where the judge is a goofball. You got dragged here to sit through a trial, get asked all kinds of personal questions, possibly during voir dire, and you're here hearing testimony on a case, and the judge is a goofball. I'm not saying this judge is a goofball. I'm just asking you as a hypothetical. How would you feel? I took a week off from work for this. So the judge has to set the standard, has to set the tone, and the tone is dignified, above and beyond everything else. Again, to use another cliche. So there you go. But it's a crazy story. And I wasn't sure if I was going to do this story at all. And when I saw it pop up on the BBC, I thought, okay, I got to do this because that's how embarrassing this was. So Nadine Youssef wrote this. A ton of people sent it. U.S. judge resigns after being disciplined for wearing an Elvis wig in court, wearing the glasses from time to time, and even playing Elvis music while people are being sworn in upon request. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Weaseling out of things is important to learn. It's what separates us from the animals, except the weasel.